Welcome to Stribling's New York. I'm your host, Rob Taub, on WORAM Radio, 710 on your digital dial. This is a show about business, culture, and people. We have a wide range of guests from authors, producers, actors, artists, restaurateurs, as well as people from the world of real estate. And most amazingly, we have a guest that encapsulates every one of those opening titles. Anthony Scaramucci, he's an entrepreneur, restaurateur, author, television host, business leader. I once called him a force of nature. So it means if we have earth, water, air, fire, the fifth element is now Scaramucci. Welcome, Anthony.
Rob, you sound like my mom. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
I have to tell you a story because one thing that every New Yorker knows now, you recently purchased Mike Piazza's jersey. And it's got a lot of publicity.
The 9/11 jersey, the one where he hit the home run on September 21st, 2001.
Now, that gets a lot of publicity, and I'm going to tell a story that nobody knows, as far as I can tell. You do. And this is a few years ago. I was in the gym. I was working out, and the trainer named Carlos, and he was telling me about his baseball career, and he had gotten a tryout for the Mets, and he'd had a tough life. His father was murdered when he was 4 years old, right in front of him in the South Bronx. He got adopted by a family in New York City, and they took him in and raised him on the Lower East Side. And he told me, amazingly, I was able to get a tryout with the Mets, and I did pretty good, and it's helped my baseball career. And I said, how did you get a tryout with the Mets? And he goes, my dad contacted a guy that he knew named Anthony Scaramucci, and he arranged the tryout for me with Bobby Valentine, and it brought tears to the guy's eyes, and I got a little choked up too. It was a beautiful thing that you did there.
Well, it's nice of you to bring it up. I mean, you're giving me too much credit. It could have never gotten done without Bobby Valentine. But I think that the more resonating message is we got to help the other guy. You know, my football coach in high school had a couple of great lines. One of them was help the other guy. That was the whole concept of teamwork. And then he had a version of this line. And then the old Goldman Sachs chairman, John Weinberg, had this sort of the same line. It was that some people grow, Rob, and other people swell. Don't forget that. You know, you've got to be always in a growth mode, but not let your head get too big and start a form of swelling.
Well, what I wrote recently in the Huffington Post last week about your conference in Las Vegas, SALT, SkyBridge Alternative Conference. But the whole focus of my essay was the reason for the growth was because of the philanthropy rather than the focus on making money. It's more really about giving it away. You have a lot of very successful people and billionaires there, but I was really moved by Ken Langone and his speech about philanthropy a few years ago, and that's really what seems to have grown the conference so dramatically.
Well, I'm going to have to agree with you on that because at the end of the day, one of the great gifts of living in the United States, if you're fortunate enough to have some business success and create some wealth that gives you some financial independence, the next move definitely has to be to give back to this wonderful society that we've had the opportunity to live in. And Ken Langone, who's one of my heroes, what he said at the conference that year is that he walks the halls of the Children's Hospital that he funded, the NYU Langone Medical Center, and he says it is his sole mission now at this point in his life is to help those children who, for whatever reason, whatever the maladies may be, they have a less fortunate situation than the one that he's experienced. And so this is one of the greatest things about our culture. It's the most giving nation on planet Earth, and I hope it will continue to be.
Well, you also really know how to raise money. You had this fantastic party by the pool at the Bellagio Hotel. I made the mistake of bringing my American Express card, and people were coming up to me going, come over here and look at this thing, and, we're going to have a charity, and they ka-chinged my card a lot of times, and then when I got the bill, I was a little bit stunned, but happy nonetheless to have made my small contributions. But I thought that was just a great way to do it, instead of having somebody cold call me at an inopportune time and ask me for the money when they're not going to get it.
We try to we try to pick a few charities every year that we think are meaningful, where we know that the money's going for a force for good, whether it's an American military veterans charity or it's an educational charity. Years ago, we were focused on fresh water and the creation of fresh water in a lot of these small areas of Africa. I would say that for SkyBridge, one of the things that we certainly want to always think about is there an opportunity for us to affect change as opposed to just ask you for spare change? And so for me, we're always trying to focus on those charities that we think are having the biggest impact in places. And so the last couple of years, Rob, has been focused on the American military, helping people get prosthetic devices, hearing aids, treatment for post-traumatic stress. We're losing something like 22 servicemen and women per day, so it's almost one serviceman or woman per hour to post-traumatic stress syndrome. Our veterans are back home taking their own lives, and we have to figure out a way to reach into them and make them feel better, and we're spending a lot of time and energy on that.
Do you have General Petraeus at this year's SALT?
Yeah, General Petraeus will be there. General Alexander was there last year with General Petraeus, the former head of the NSA. I had the opportunity to go on a troop support mission through the business executives of national security in October to Afghanistan, which was an untimely trip for me, Rob, because it was the first two games of the World Series. Who would have thought that my team, the New York Mets, would have gotten into the World Series when I booked that trip 6 months prior? But General John Campbell, our four-star, who ran Resolute Support, the NATO operation out of Kabul, I had the opportunity to visit him there. He'll be joining us at SALT. And remember, we're trying to think about people that are great in entertainment. So that would be Rob Howard and Will Smith this year. People that are great in politics. That'll be Jim Messina, who ran President Obama's campaign, but also Karl Rove, that brought George W. Bush to the presidency. And then down the line to some of the legendary investors in the world, whether it's a Leon Cooperman. We've got a whole broad base of people that we're drawing from. But I like bringing people from the American military because I do think from a financial perspective and from a portfolio management perspective, the American military doesn't get enough credit for creating the more or less nonviolent world that we live in, which gives us the opportunity to have so much commerce.
Well, I agree with you, and I am always wowed by not just the list of speakers and commentators that you have at SALT, but the fact that everybody gets along pretty well. As my grandmother used to say after we had a family gathering, it was a success. No one was sent to the hospital and no one was arrested. I'm as you are. I'm on Fox News a lot and various other shows, and it can get acrimonious at times, and it never is at SALT. I sound like I'm on the payroll, but it's really true. It's a great atmosphere. And a lot gets done.
Well, I appreciate that because that's part of the ethos. We're trying to make it an ideas conference. We can make it a battle of ideas. Certainly, there could be an ideological battle there. We don't want it to be partisan, so we're drawing from both sides of the aisle in terms of who's going to be speaking there. We had President Obama's domestic policy advisor, Valerie Jarrett, there at the same time that we had, who's now the Speaker of the House, Congressman Paul Ryan. And so I like to tell people, come. Leave your ad hominem and personal attacks at the door. Let's have a battle of ideas. Let's have a spirited debate about things. But at the end of the day, I run a firm called SkyBridge, and we're trying to build a bridge to people.
I was speaking to your partner, Victor, for the interview, and I said, my God, you've had like everybody in the world at the conference. Who haven't you got? And he mentioned Ariana Huffington, who I work with, and I emailed Ariana, and she emailed me right back. She said she was going to tweet about this. We're still waiting. She's going to be on the show, I think, next week or the week after. And it's I was thinking about the two of you because she's written a book about how important sleep is and how we have to log our sleep. How much do you sleep? I'm looking at your schedule, and I get tired just reading it.
Well, listen, I think I haven't read her latest book, but the prior book was fantastic about the self-actualization of women, and I gave the book to my daughter and many of my friends, and so I'm a huge fan of her entrepreneurial spirit. She's a great risk taker. She's willing to go against conventional wisdom, and so she would be a perfect person to have at SALT. I hope at some point we'll get her to come. As far as it relates to me and sleeping, I sleep more than people would probably think, because one of the great things of luck for me is that I'm a great cat napper. So if I can get in the back of a car, or I'm on a plane, or it could be at any time of the day, which probably means that I'm underslept, I can get myself a 30, 40-minute nap. But I'm typically 4 to 6 hours at night during the week, and something like 7 to 9 hours on the weekend.
4 hours is one of my cat naps. I need 12 to 16 hours is good for me. I don't get a lot accomplished. I just talk to the people who achieve things like you.
I agree, and I think you should get to sleep. There's no question about that. I've been yelled at by my wife. I got to get more sleep. But the truth of the matter is, there's another expression. It probably didn't come from the Italians, but I think my grandfather said it. I can sleep when I'm dead. Let's get busy here. There's a lot to do.
Anthony, it's really amazing what you've accomplished. You used to work with my ex-wife, Yolanda, who yelled at me this weekend for sleeping too much, in fact, and she says hello. And we'll all be at SALT.
Well, Yolanda's a great business partner. She's a great business mind. But I appreciate what you're saying about what's going on here, but I don't want to make the total emphasis on me. None of this stuff could have gotten done without a well-rounded team and a team of people that can pass the ball to each other and not be credit hogs. And so that's a big emphasis. You talk about culture. I know you mean like the arts and things like that, but I'm really thinking about business culture. And one of the big things at SkyBridge that I want to emphasize for your listeners is that we really do try to use the right pronouns here. Let's focus on we and our as opposed to me and I. Just the language itself will make for a lot more of a team spirit in terms of producing things.
Well, when I first wrote about SALT a few years ago for the Las Vegas Sun, and they did a great spread in their Sunday magazine, he really gave the credit to Victor. How do I pronounce Victor's last name so I don't botch it?
Oviedo.
Oviedo.
So Victor Oviedo just celebrated yesterday his 10th anniversary at the firm. He's one of our business partners, an equity owner here. He came up with the idea to start that conference at the bottom of the financial crisis. It was March of 2009, Rob. He came into my office and said, listen, we've got to start a conference. I looked at him like he was completely crazy. And he said, no, listen to me. Everybody is bailing on the city of Las Vegas. We can get the rooms very cheap. And my guess is if we're right and we've caught the bottom, this could be a very, very successful event. And if we're wrong, it'll be our going away party as we shut the business down. Well, thankfully, it went directionally in the right direction.
I know in the 80s, I used to own a company. And this is before PowerPoint, when video was really even in its infancy, and they have to get a $90,000 GE projector to show a video to a lot of people. So it was a very lucrative business. And I went to every conference from pharmaceuticals to food and did video support. And I've been to them across the world. And that's what really piqued my interest more than anything in SALT, because I put you guys in the top 5, and I've been to probably over 200 of them. So I'm an expert.
Well, Rob, I appreciate that. The goal, obviously, is to get you back and have you someday say, well, it's in the top 1. That's our goal. And so we'll continue to innovate there. I think one of the big things you have to worry about with conferences, it's a lot like television programming. And so you don't want to get yourself dated or aged or try too many things in a repetitive way. I think of our conference like the Today Show or the Tonight Show or the longest-running show in television, Meet the Press. So it has to have an element of contemporization. It has to have an element of what's going on in the society right now. But it also has to have, rather than just information, Rob, we have to provide insight. We're inundated as a society with information, but I think what is always a scarce commodity is insight. What to do with that information that's coming into your smartphone or your TV or your radio or off of your computer.
Anthony, you with me?
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I lost you for a second. It got very quiet. Oh, now I want to talk just a little before we wrap up. What's in the future for you? I'll tell you a funny story. Last week, a friend of mine, or a week or two ago, was in his car and he was listening to NPR and somebody was talking about you. And they called you a kingmaker, but my friend tried to dictate it to Siri and it came out incongruously as like thingmaker. I was like, what? Who? Scaramucci? What is he doing now? No, kingmaker.
Well, there's no king making on my part at all, but I definitely want to be part of the political process because, I tell people if you're going to get taxed at north of 50%, live here in the state of New York, you're now a minority partner in your own life. And so you better get involved in the hiring decisions of the people that are taking that tax money from you and have a pretty good understanding of their character, their personalities, and what are they actually going to do with that money to serve the public with the money. And so I'm pretty focused on that. I like holding politicians accountable, as I think they should be. And we do spend a lot of time in the world of politics because whether we like it or not, it's dead economists, Robert, and living politicians that drive a lot of the things that go on in our lives.
So besides that, where do you see SkyBridge going and your future and what you do? And you're also hosting Wall Street Week. I mean, I wasn't kidding in the opening. So you've got Wall Street Week, you've got a podcast, you have the Hunt and Fish Club in Times Square, which is an excellent restaurant and a wonderful steak and other food. And I've eaten there many times and had some wonderful bourbons at the bar. So you're a restaurateur, you're an author, you've written Goodbye Gordon Gekko, The Little Book of Hedge Funds, which I've reviewed for Huffington Post. And what else?
Well, listen, for me, I'm an entrepreneur, so I want to continue to grow this business. We started this business with no assets 11 years ago and 3 people. We have 80 people now at SkyBridge and $13.5 billion in assets. And so my goal is to take the next 5 years and see if we can double those assets again. As it relates to the restaurant and some of the other fun things that we're able to do, it reminds me of what Ronald Reagan used to have on his desk in the Oval Office. It said you can get anywhere you want in your life as long as you don't care who gets the credit. And so for me, it's about delegation. It's about creating autonomy for people that work alongside of me. Just again, the use of language. No one, Robert, has ever worked for me. People work with me. And so it's always a collaboration. With the delegation and the autonomy, however, does come accountability. And so we've got some great restaurant operators working on the restaurant. We've got one of the best television producers, Charlie Gould, who's working alongside of my team, Susan Krakauer, over at the Fox Business Network to develop the concepts behind Wall Street Week. Some of your listeners will recognize that name. It's the old Louis Rukeyser show. A bit of trivia. Louis Rukeyser was the longest-serving television host. He beats David Letterman by 2 years. He hosted Wall Street Week from 1970 to 2005. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2005, and the show lay dormant for many, many years. We decided to pick up the licensing from the Maryland Public Television, Lou's likeness, the library, the film library, convinced the Fox Business Channel to air that show on Friday nights at 8 p.m. with 2 replays on Saturday and Sunday at 9 a.m. But the show is about content related to investing, and they're longer formatted interviews. My attitude is it fits very, very nicely into our business model because I want people to think of SkyBridge with 2 words in mind. One is access. We want to provide access to people that have not typically had access to some of the brightest minds in the world of investing. And the second thing is what I said earlier, which is insight. What to do with the information in your world as it relates to your investment portfolio. I grew up in the middle class. My parents never went to college. But why should they be excluded from the investment process from some of the brightest minds in the world? And so my attitude is I always think of them, have them in my mind when I'm reaching out into the public to deliver our message.
Well, your show is great, especially for me because I use it to poach your guests. I don't understand finance much, but I go, oh, Robert Wolf, he'd be a good guest on our show. And then I just drop your name and boom, he's in the studio. And so I thank you for that.
You're welcome to my whole. I believe in the sharing economy, Rob. You're welcome to my whole Rolodex.
Gladly. Okay, it's good. I don't know if I could lift it up, but I would like to have access to it at some time. Anthony, thanks so much for joining us. This has been informative and entertaining. And if I don't see you within the next couple of weeks, I will see you in Las Vegas.
I can't wait to see you at SALT. It's always great to have you out there, and I really appreciate it. It's a big honor to be on your show.
Well, thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
All the best.